gay shit. Hello, and welcome everybody to another edition of Hell and Hightails, the edgiest weeaboo podcast on the interwebs, slowly, anally fisting our ways into your fleshy hearts. Today, we're not talking about anime in particular, however, we are going over our favorite video games in existence, at least at this point in time. Obviously, this could change in a few years. To start us out, I am joined today by Will!
Hello!
Video games! Go!
Well, let us start with the one that I've been playing for the last 20 minutes. Subnautica is a fantastic, fucking wonderful, magical, deep diving experience. The premise of the game is you are stranded on you're part of a big, what is essentially a mega corporation called Altera.
I didn't expect you to do this fucking voice for this long. I thought you would drop it after, like, the first opening bit.
Nah, I'm gonna keep it.
God damn it.
You start... the game
Everyone
starts
immediately
with your...
exits out of this tab.
The goal is going to deep space to build a warp gate, which is basically used for traveling around the galaxy. And the game starts with you fleeing into an escape pod of the giant ship that is being shot down. And you land on this mysterious ocean planet. And your goal is to survive and try and find a way off it. However, over time, you slowly start to realize that there's a mysterious, strange biological disease, a strange bacterium that you've been infected by and is infecting the local wildlife. And you basically get to explore the map, uncover the mysteries of the story, and eventually escape the planet. I don't want to get too spoilery with it, but it's a fantastic game. It looks absolutely stunning. The gameplay is fun. It's a great experience learning
is it on
mysteries.
For people listening?
It is on PC and Xbox One, and I'm not sure if it's on PlayStation or not.
One of my favorite video games I have ever played is by far Final Fantasy IX. Game is a delightful masterpiece. I mean, I'm an obnoxious nerd for Final Fantasy games anyway, because, well, for one, I just love JRPGs in general, and I love games where I can get very powerful by doing repetitive and mindless tasks instead of actually having good reaction time, which I don't have. And I think a lot of my fondness for RPGs has just always come from me just coming from, like, a childhood where often I would only get, like, 1, 2, maybe 3 games in a year. So, like, if that wasn't a game I could pour trillions of hours in, it would be really problematic. And I would probably just end up playing it until I hated it. So, long games like Final Fantasy are always fantastic. Final Fantasy IX, it's really interesting because when it opens up, it's following, like, this fucking goofy-ass theater troupe kidnapping a princess, but over the course of the story, and it gets more fucking complicated and convoluted, it delves into being this, like, philosophical story about accepting death and the futility of life, and whether or not you can really give meaning to a life if your only destiny is to just die with nothing at the end of it. And it's just a really beautiful, breathtaking story with different characters trying to come to it and come to terms with it in different ways. You just give him a to that? I give this fucking beautiful fucking summary of Final Fantasy IX, and you're just like,
I won't deny it's a beautiful summary, but I don't know, I can't really give much of a reaction to it because I've never played a Final Fantasy game. I've just never, like, been that interested in it.
I mean, every Final Fantasy game, I mean, they're all very similar and have all very similar tropes, but every Final Fantasy game is a different game with a different story and different mechanics in it, to an extent. So, like, playing a Final Fantasy game isn't the same as playing all Final Fantasy games. To kind of get an idea of what tropes are in all of them, you kind of need to play, I think 3 to really be like, oh, okay, I've played a couple of them, I see the things that are usually throughout all of them.
That's fair.
I say that, but then, I've mostly played, PS1 era Final Fantasy games, and if you get to, New Age ones, they've become more of action RPGs, which are drastically different than a turn-based game. But
isn't that the one where the one chick dies and it's one of the biggest gaming controversies in history because everyone's like, oh, there's got to be a way to bring her back because there's a beloved character.
That
one of the
was
ones on
Final
PlayStation
Fantasy VII, which was one of the ones that was on PlayStation 1. That was the first one to be on PlayStation 1. I have played Final Fantasy at the time of recording this. I have played Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 10-2. So those, I've played all of the PlayStation 1 era games and the first PS2 games that have come out.
Yes.
I haven't played any of the new ones or anything yet. I've mostly played the more grindy boys. I need to go back and play the really old school ones that were on the NES sometime. I just always put it off because there's so much games out that exist within the universe. Right now I'm actually going back and replaying through Final Fantasy VIII because it just got remastered for all consoles for a good price. So I'm replaying through that because I never actually beat it because my good old abusive mother Diane, one of the few actual, cool boyfriends she had was this dude named Michael Gatto. And, back in,
Goddamn.
Yeah, he was very happy that his last name was Gatto. He would just, get really up close to you, really creepily close. He's like, hey, bro, Gatto means cat. And he would fucking die laughing. Fucking
Jesus.
die. For context, this guy was the biggest pothead ever, so that's why it was so funny, but
Oh, okay. So he was just 90% of the time stoned off his goddamn rocker.
yeah, he was one of those guys that got a weed card for medical marijuana super early on, and he was just fucking rocking that shit.
Damn.
The second he got that fucking weed card, he's like, I'm a fucking run with this shit. But, fucking... At least I think he had a weed card. I remember him having some sort of medical thing that ended up giving him an excuse to smoke lots of pot, but maybe he just lied. I don't know. I was fucking 6. But this guy...
I don't know. I was 6.
But,
that has got to be
this is, between me being, 6 to 9, era. But, he was a cool dude, I enjoyed him a lot. Even though he pissed me off sometimes. But, this one time, he's just fucking sitting there and he's like, you know what? This fucking kid, he needs a really good-ass fucking video game. So he just grabs and hands me Final Fantasy VIII to play.
It's here you go, sport.
This fucking... And no, I've never seen a Final Fantasy game before this. So he hands me Final Fantasy VIII, and this fucker has 4 discs in it. So I'm like, how does this game have more than 1 disc? How does that even work? So it's and then I turn it on to fucking play, and there's the dilemma of, I'm not even 10 yet, and a lot of the Final Fantasy games, 7 and 9, the tutorials for the game aren't too bad. They're over pretty quick in the beginning, or they're sparingly, but they're not too bad. Final Fantasy VIII, though, there's fucking 10 different tutorials that pop up really fucking quickly. Because this game, it decided, hey, let's have a very unique system for how we're going to do stats and magic and all that shit. The problem is, because it's really unique and different, they had to have a lot of tutorial explaining it, as well as a bunch of tutorial for a bunch of other random bullshit. So fucking, little old 9-year-old JW is sitting there and he's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I talked to an NPC. I skimmed the text. He said something about hot dogs, so I guess I gotta find hot dogs. I went to the cafeteria. They were sold out. It turns out I just had to walk outside and go to the car, but literally, I never got further than, like, turning the game on and getting through, like, skipping the tutorial text. Because the fucking high school place you're in is also huge as shit. So it's like, I'm lost. So, I'm now going back as a fucking, like, 11 years later, 12 years later now, and just depending on what age I say I did this at, because I'm not 100% sure. But over a decade later, and I'm replaying it now, and actually progressing, and actually reading.
I'm learning!
I'm surprised that your opening statement in this wasn't you bringing up your fucking obnoxious butt love for Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, that died off a long time ago. For the most part, that was my ex that fucking still adores Sonic the Hedgehog.
I remember
that was when I was in high school.
But I just assumed, because in high school you were just so fucking into Sonic the Hedgehog and not a lot else. And then I know for a fact that you got fucking Sonic Forces when it came out, and Sonic Mania. So I assumed, like, okay, well, they're still buying all the new Sonic games that come out, so they must still be a huge fucking butt-ramming, fucking cock-loving Sonic fan.
Alright, so here's my reasoning. I bought Sonic Mania because that was, like, the first thing I bought for my Switch because I didn't have, like, any actual games for it yet, and I was like, oh, this is something I can just buy digitally, it's not going to take up a shit ton of space, and, it's like the classic format, so everyone has been saying, like, oh yeah, it's a really good Sonic game. And then Sonic Forces I bought because everyone was like, oh yeah, it's like Sonic Generations, and I genuinely enjoyed Generations, so I'm like, oh, okay. And I got it. It wasn't bad. It was just meh. I beat it in like 6 hours.
Oh god, I love how everyone beat that game so fucking fast too, and we're just like, oh.
It was so short.
And it's funny because they went, instead of going 60, they made the game $40 to compensate for, like, how short it was, but it was still like, bruh. This is so short.
I've paid, like, $30 for games that had more content than that lasted longer. Subnautica is $30, and that game you can easily put, like, 20 hours into one fucking thing.
I mean, if we're gonna get really obnoxious about it and just be like, yeah, here's a cheap game that has a lot of content, fucking Stardew Valley is like $15 and you can spend hundreds of hours in that shit.
I want to get Stardew Valley. I hear everyone saying it's good.
Yeah. That's a little unfair, though, because that's a pixelated, kind of sandboxy kind of game. And it's unfair to really compare the hours of content in that to a platformer.
That's fair. I suppose Subnautica is like a sandbox, too. It's a set map, but it's a very large map that you can do a lot in. Yeah, a sandbox
game, you inherently have more hours that you're going to be putting in than a platformer where you got to make a billion levels. So no matter what, you're going to have more. And also, if it's like Stardew Valley, it's a pixelated game. So comparing the amount of effort it takes to make a long pixelated game compared to a long fucking 3D fucking Sonic the Hedgehog game is entirely different. So it's unfair to make that comparison. But still.
Yeah.
Still, Stardew Valley for your money is still a better game, though.
Also, at the same time, though, Stardew Valley inherently probably doesn't have nearly as large of a development team.
Yeah, that's also true.
Nor does it have like a big studio
Sonic
backing
is a fucking beloved franchise that you think could spend a lot of money to do a lot more than they do. So like,
Stardew Valley is a game that there's probably at least 3 or 4 people listening to this podcast that have never heard of it.
Yeah, so like,
yeah, 3 or 4 of the 10 people watching
doesn't have an excuse to not fucking bust out some quality shit. I mean, okay, I guess it does a little bit, because the formula of Sonic has always been a little bit wonky. It's it's a weird, unique take on a platformer that it almost doesn't work. And in a lot of the classic games, they found ways to make this crazy thing work. But it's not like a formula that you could really replicate well, because it's just so weird and wonky. Because it's not like Donkey Kong or Mario. It's this weird thing where you're supposed to be speeding through and going through all these ramps and shit, but also the game is supposed to constantly punishing you. It's supposed to punish you every 2 minutes for going fast, but also if you're not going fast, the game fucking sucks. So every second you're moving slow in Sonic the Hedgehog, you're miserable, so you have to go fast. But it also wants to make it suck and be hard to go fast by putting shit in your way, so you just gotta get really good at it so that way you could enjoy it. And then they created this really weird and unique world and a way too large cast of characters, so that
it's so obnoxiously large.
And so a lot of that tied together created a very weird franchise that it's really lovable. Like, I have such a love-hate relationship with this fucking series, because there's such an endearing quality to it, but yet it's so broken most of the time that the fact that it still manages to be endearing is, like, a miracle. So, like, I almost think at this point that Sonic the Hedgehog as a franchise isn't like this long-withstanding franchise because it was a great idea. It's a fucking batshit idea with batshit lore that accidentally works sometimes. But there's something oddly endearing about it that still makes you keep coming back to see if they got it right this time.
I just love Tails because he's adorable.
God damn it.
And so pure.
God damn it. I go on this fucking, like, really detailed fucking rant about Sonic the Hedgehog, and you, the Sonic the Hedgehog fanboy, is just like, I like Tails.
Former fanboy, okay, thank you very much. Like I said...
Then why does the former fanboy have a less detailed and nuanced feeling about Sonic the Hedgehog than the guy who's just said he hates it before?
I don't know, I just play games that I think are fun and don't play games that I don't think are fun. That's a lie. We played a lot of Sonic 06.
Yeah,
that's very not fun.
One of our first videos together was playing Sonic 08, and that's probably the game we talk about playing the most.
06, not 08.
Oh, whatever. Fuck you.
God.
A 6 is almost an 8.
I was talking to someone the other day. I don't remember the whole conversation, but basically, I had mentioned how how the two of us had played Sonic 06 and how fucking terrible it was, and they were like, "Oh, but was it really that bad, or was it?" They started to go on this like thing of how like, "Oh no, it's actually pretty good." I was like, "No, it's bad. Shut the fuck up. It's horrible." It was, in fact, that bad. It had nothing to do with the fact that I was younger. It sucked.
Also,
it
if
sucked
anything,
more than me and JW combined, and we are raging queers.
That is true. It has sucked more at being a game than total cocks we have sucked as human beings. I feel like being younger is a really bad argument, though, because I think being younger makes games a lot better, because usually when you're younger, you don't, like, with a lot of shows and games you play, you don't notice as many big glaring faults in them. And Sonic is a simple fucking series, so it's not like Final Fantasy, where I didn't get into it as a kid because I just couldn't fucking... I didn't have the attention span to read that much. It's a game that we understood mechanically. The dilemma, so if anything, if we played it more now that we're, like, older and more analytically minded, we would probably hate it more! We would probably dislike it infinitely more than we did before. It hasn't aged better.
Yeah, I was gonna say, usually what it is people they're like, "Oh, you just think this game sucks because you're a kid and you're bad at games."
Like, nah, bro, the game just fucking sucks.
Like, what have you considered? Go fuck yourself.
Also, I should point out, we weren't even we weren't even kids. We were like fucking.
Yeah, we were like in high school, middle school.
We were like 16.
We were fucking teenagers.
We were 16-year-olds are cognitive enough to play fucking Sonic the Hedgehog. People can cognitively understand Sonic the Hedgehog when they're fucking 4, okay? So age is not an excuse if you're talking about disliking a Sonic game. Especially a New Age Sonic game, because a lot of New Age ones you can just win by just holding forward.
Speaking of games and age, another one of my favorite games of all time, one that I feel has aged exceptionally well, is the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. I think that's kind of in the gaming community unanimously agreed upon that was a fantastic game.
I feel like I've played that game once for a very short duration, but it was just once a long time ago. I never really played it a lot.
Yeah. And to be fair, you don't really play many shooters either.
Yeah, I've never been super into shooters. The only shooters I could think of that I like is the original Doom and fucking Star Fox Assault, if we're counting all the third-person segments that are in that.
I genuinely enjoyed that game. Not gonna lie.
Star Fox Assault?
Yeah, that was the one where you kind of went between being in a R-Wing, a Landmaster, and on the ground, right?
Yeah. See, a lot of people have mixed feelings about Star Fox Assault, but I think Star Fox Assault is fucking underrated and deserves a lot more love.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to go between those things a lot more. I know the whole idea of Star Fox started off with the R-Wing, but some of my favorite levels from Star Fox 64 were the Landmaster segments, as fucking infuriating as they were.
Fucking a lot. Okay. The reason people don't like Star Fox Assault is because Star Fox Adventure came out on the GameCube, and Star Fox Adventure fucking sucked. So when they came out with another Star Fox game on the fucking GameCube that wasn't exactly like Star Fox 64, everyone decided to shit on it because the game before it sucked. However...
Wait. Did Star Fox Adventure let you do that too, where you can go between being on the ground and the Landmaster and on the sky?
Yes, but that's not the one you played at my place. Star Fox Adventure is the one with the talking dinosaurs.
Oh god, maybe that was the one that I played, I think. I definitely played one at your place, but I played another one on someone else's GameCube that I think I did play Star Fox Adventure before, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't. It was more so I just liked the gimmick of being able to go between the things.
But a lot of people hate Star Fox Adventure, and so Star Fox Assault gets piggyback hate. It gets carryover hate. It didn't do anything wrong. It's a fine game. It's a fucking solid game. It's not doing anything horribly offensive. There's nothing really major wrong with it. However, because the game before it was genuinely just hated by a lot of people, and because this one didn't go back to how Star Fox 64 is exactly, a lot of people just fucking shat on it and never gave it a chance. And
its only mistake was being born.
Yes, basically. And I feel like, because people complain now that whenever Star Fox gets a new game, it's just Star Fox 64 over again. But bro, Star Fox Adventure came out and it was different, everyone fucking hated it. Then Star Fox Assault came out. Genuinely good game, but it was still a little different and everybody fucking ignored it. So guess what? They're like, okay, well, if everybody just wants Star Fox 64 remade over and over again, let's just remake Star Fox 64 over and over again. And now everyone's pissed that they keep making Star Fox 64 over and over again.
I find that extra funny, actually, because it makes me think of when the new Star Wars Battlefront 2 was made. A lot of people complained about how shit it was. And it's like, oh, we wanted something similar to the original. But the thing is, the the developer DICE, when it was announced that they were going to be making it, they're the people that make the Battlefield games. Everyone was like, "Oh, we don't just want a Star Wars, or we don't want a Battlefield game with a Star Wars skin." But the thing is, that's kind of what the originals were. They were very similar to Battlefield.
People are just such, like... I mean, I
People
get
don't know
it
what they want.
Like, I get that... Okay. When you hear all these people complaining, not all of those people you hear complaining are the same people you hear complaining about something else later. People just only really provide input on YouTube and on social media when they either want to complain or when they have an opinion that they think isn't being expressed enough. So you just only see the negative. So, I get that, but I still think there's just a lot of issues with the fucking gaming community on being these needy, fucking entitled dicks sometimes.
I think people are just fucking stupid.
Like, dudes
Plain
will
and
straight
simple.
up expect fucking people making video games to remake entire games because it's not good enough, or, they'll be like, why don't you just release that as a free update, that's gonna take you 6 months to make? And, okay, would that be cool if they did that? Yes, it's always good when they do that, especially if it's a game that's broken. However, the fact that you will be, it's still, like, if it's a game that's broken, I get it, but if it's, like, extra content that's made after the game, you can't really expect all that to usually be free, Or it's like the DLC thing. Like, it's good to an extent, because the gaming community, being as aggressive as it is, helps stop fucking gaming companies from taking advantage of fans as much as they would otherwise. But
Does it, though? They already kind of do quite a bit.
Yeah, they do. But they take advantage of each other. Because fucking game developers, especially with stupid shit like loot crates and fucking content locked on the disc when it comes out and shit like that, or fucking re-releasing the same game every year with just a roster update, shit like that, they fucking milk the shit out of the audience and they treat them like shit. But at the same time, when I look at a lot of these comments, I see a lot of gamers that treat developers like shit. So it's a two-way road of entitled developers and entitled fans just being dicks to each other and expecting too much. So, like, it's almost hard, because, like, I can't just defend either side, because both sides are being assholes so much. So much.
I said, people suck.
Like, I get into that not a lot, but I got into that on one podcast I was on with a friend of mine. I don't even know if he ever even uploaded it, because he never got back to me on it. But it's this dude I met on Roblox back in 2010 that's training to be a pro wrestler IRL. And he used to do a Pokemon podcast I was on, and he was talking about the national decks. And him and all of his buddies were just like, fuck Nintendo, fuck Game Freak, fuck the Pokemon Company, fuck all of you, you're all pieces of fucking shit, suck my balls, because you don't have every single fucking 900 million fucking Pokemon and fucking animation that is on par with Super Smash Brothers. And okay, they weren't really like that. I am exaggerating to a phenomenal degree. They're all really cool people. I'm mostly exaggerating to be funny, just clarifying. But they were all really upset over the National Dex thing, and I was on there playing devil's advocate, essentially going like, it's been great that essentially every Pokemon game has given us the ability to trade up from older games into the new ones. That's been really great. It's been a delightful privilege to have that they have the sprites ready for us to just go up, and that even when we jump into a new system, they still have that shit ready. But to really have the sheer level of hate that people do because they just didn't do it this time, and jumping from a 3DS that looks like, that doesn't even look as good as a GameCube, it looks like you know, it's like better than N64, but like in between that and GameCube. Jumping from that to a fucking Nintendo Switch that they don't have all the fucking models done for every Pokemon and you can't trade up. Like, bro, it's so much fucking additional work just to do that, and they're already making a complete game. The game isn't less of a $60 game because you can't trade your level 100 overpowered Pokemon from Black and White 2 over to this game. It's still a fucking complete $60 package of a game that they spent billions of dollars making. Expecting these fuckers to spend another fucking 9 months developing sprites to port into this game is absurd. Would I love it if they did that? Yes. And should they do it? Probably, just because of all the outrage. They should do that. However, if they don't do that, it's not like they're fucking anally raping you. They're just releasing a $60 game that's worth $60 that has less cool shit than you wanted. But it's still worth $60 because it's a game that clearly had the development going into it that would justify the price.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Because for me, I was really looking forward to it because this was going to be my first. Because I haven't like actually put in any time or effort into a Pokemon game since fucking Yellow and Blue. Those are the only two Pokemon games that I've ever actually like really played, unless you count Let's Go. But even then, I haven't finished it yet.
And even then, that's like the same gen too. So like.
Yeah. So it's like, I was really excited about it because I thought, oh, sweet, it's going to be my first time experiencing it. It's because I've never really, I've never had another Nintendo console other than Nintendo 64 and a Game Boy.
Not being 100% of all Pokemon upon release, how does that diminish that, though? Because you can't trade from your old copy of Yellow, even if that wasn't the case.
That's fair, but it would just be kind of cool to be able to catch everything.
I mean, you will be able to. You just won't be able to trade them from 3DS games and below.
Well, yeah, but isn't it a matter of, like, not all the Pokemon from older gens are going to be in the game?
Well, yes, but it's still not like that's going to, like, affect... I still don't see how that's, like, ruining the concept of you finally getting to play this Pokemon game forever. Because you also can't catch all Pokemon in-game in any Pokemon game.
Oh.
In any of them. The only thing they're taking out is that they couldn't, in the developing, they didn't make every single sprite for every single Pokemon. So that means if you have Pokemon saved in the Pokemon Bank from Pokemon Sun and Moon, Black and White 2, or whatever, you can't trade them into the game. It just means you can't trade in Pokemon to the game. Every Pokemon game before now, for the most part, every main series one at least, you've usually been able to, even in a convoluted way, still trade up your Pokemon from old games. Sometimes it was in a convoluted-ass way, but you could still do it. And now you can't, but if you were just going to this game after not playing anything since Yellow, it's still going to be the same, because in Pokemon Pearl, you couldn't catch every Pokemon. You could trade every older Pokemon in, but you couldn't catch every Pokemon. Black and White, every one of them is the same. At least to my knowledge, essentially most of them have always been that way. So it's a trading dilemma. It's not the actual gameplay itself that's affected. All the Pokemon that were intended to be in it are still in it. But you just can't trade in Pokemon from past gens that don't have sprites already made in the game. And they plan to change that, but it's seeming like what's going to happen is every Pokemon will be able to be in the game, but only as new Pokemon games come out, and those new Pokemon games, like remakes and shit, have the old Pokemon. So what's probably going to happen is this game's going to come out. You're going to be able to trade some Pokemon from Let's Go into it. And then this game's going to have a shit ton of Pokemon, but not all of them. Then a remake of, like, let's say Pokemon Diamond and Pearl is going to come out. And then that's going to have a shit ton of Pokemon, and then at that point you're either going to have all of them, or most of them, and then whatever game comes out on Switch after that is going to have the rest of them if they didn't get all of them in the remakes. Like, it sucks because it's a feature you're used to having, but people are legit saying that they're not going to buy this game and that they've ruined Pokemon by not giving them the opportunity to keep the Pokemon they caught in Black and White by trading them all the way up into this one.
I suppose that's fair.
So, like, I don't disagree that it sucks. I just disagree that the outrage is to the degree in which it is present. And also, speaking of Pokemon Sword and Shield, I messaged you about this a bit ago. We also got confirmation that there's going to be 18 gyms.
Yeah, I've seen, like, obviously, I don't understand the significance of that.
For every single type. I think it was 18. Or was it 16?
Yeah, and I feel kind of dumb because it's, as someone who obviously hasn't played nearly as much Pokemon as a lot of people that are excited for this game, I don't have, like, nearly as much appreciation for that fact, but a lot of other people are very excited about it.
Well, yeah, because it's like, the standard is 8. This is a lot more. And part of the thing with Pokemon is that, at least with the way I've played it, it's always been like, hey, look at me, I'm fucking busting through here, I want to get super fucking beefy and OP, so I'm gonna walk in this fucking gym and fucking smack them with my OP Pokemon, and then you always get segued into a lot of other story shit that I usually give less of a shit about, because the main thing I play Pokemon for is just the power fantasy of overgrinding and being OP and sweeping everything.
Is to crush a 10-year-old's dreams and then take their money.
Yeah, basically. And this is giving me more gyms and opportunities to fucking get OP and flex on people. So that's like, the dream right there. Which just makes sense. Like, cool, we get more cool gym battles. And we get a gym for every type this time. It's righteous.
Nice. It is actually really cool.
We got about 8 minutes left. So what are some other of your, favorite games of all time?
Let's see. When it comes to shooters, I've always been a big fan of the Battlefield franchise. More recently, me and one of my other friends have been playing a lot of a game called Paladins, which is a MOBA that's very similar to Overwatch. So if someone who likes Overwatch, I would highly recommend Paladins.
I actually saw Paladins on the Nintendo Switch before Overwatch came on it, and everybody was saying, hey, Nintendo found a way to get its own fucking Overwatch Lite, saying Overwatch won't come to Switch.
It's also free to play, which is another fun thing about it. So, whereas Overwatch, you're still going to be tasked. You still have to buy at least a $30 version of it, because Overwatch, they, instead of, dropping the price a bit more on a 3-year-old game, they just made it now the only version you can find anywhere is the Legendary Edition. So they give you a handful of skins and a meaningless amount of currency, and then they somehow justify a 3-year-old game still being $30 to $40. Sorry, I have a little bit of distaste. I like Overwatch, and I still play Overwatch, but I have a lot of distaste towards Blizzard and Activision as a whole.
That's totally justified.
Yeah,
I still have raging hate boner for fucking 2K for how they fucked me over when WWE 2K18 came out on the Nintendo Switch. I bought that fucking game. I was going to buy that game for when it was announced. I bought the DLC for that game. This game was plagued with so many fucking issues. So many issues, Will. There was one of the... Okay, every time in this game, every week, you have to do a match, right? Fucking common sense, the wrestling game. The story progresses, but each week, the story progresses to each week, you still have to do a match every single week for the story to progress. However, the NPC you have to talk to every single week before you do a match, and multiple times throughout, for the first 4 to 6 months, that this video game was out. That NPC didn't even have his fucking head rendered into the complete version of the video game that was released physically and digitally.
Jesus.
He had a black void shaped like a head with 2 fucking eyes floating in his black soup of a being. There is this portion of this video game where you have to win a ladder match with multiple people involved. However, they didn't program ladders correctly. So when a ladder falls over, which they tend to do a lot, all of a sudden, the game no longer registers that that ladder is within existence. But it does. It will no longer let your character or any other character interact with the ladder once it falls over. It will register it in a different plane. However, it still registers that there is a certain number of ladders out. I think you can have, 4 ladders out, I think. And so once you meet the maximum ladders, once all of them fall and end up in nowhere plane, you can't pull out any more ladders because the game knows that you've reached the maximum amount of ladders that are pull-outable. However, you can't pick those ladders up. So what you do is you just fucking lose. You just gotta reset.
You just lose.
Because
you just accept
all you have to do,
that you're not going to be happy in life.
Because if you climb a ladder, all someone has to do is run up and fucking kick it, or run up and press a button and push it for it to be on the ground. That's all it takes. And it's really easy to do. So it was fucked. Also, this game had... It still does. This game has so much lag that this is fucking shitty, out-of-date desktop Roblox level lag.
This is Roblox on my mom's Windows XP fucking Dell desktop.
I'm not exaggerating. 2K...
The computer we couldn't even get it to run on.
Yes, this game barely runs. Loading times are abysmal. Most of it doesn't work. And the shit they patched took 6 months. The DLC didn't release until 8 months later. That I paid for when it came out. That was released the following week for everyone else, or something like that. Not the following week, but it wasn't released too long after. And this game... 2K was like, hey, you, random-ass fucking studio, who has never made a Switch game before, do you want to port this complicated-ass, photorealistic, giant, fucking billion-gig fucking game, and do you want to fucking make that on Switch? Nintendo Switch. How... That is, by far, one of the dumbest gaming decisions by a company, ever in porting. A Nintendo Switch is a fucking tablet. It's a fucking small-ass tablet with controllers that clip on. You can't just port a game that was originally programmed to work on a fucking Xbox or fucking PS4. And fucking just move it over unless you designed that game specifically to be easily optimized, which this wasn't. This game took a lot of effort just to get onto Xbox One, and Xbox One's not that different from PS4 in terms of, the hardware and porting. So, I don't know how anyone thought that you can just easily port this unoptimizable, it's not a game that has easily changeable settings, so how did anyone think you could easily port this over, especially for a third-party fucking developing team that's never made anything for Switch? How? Tell me. Also, it had loot crates, so fuck that shit.
Oh, of course it had loot boxes.
Yeah,
why the fuck
wouldn't
it have loot boxes?
And you need loot boxes to upgrade your stats.
Because it was made in what, 2018? You said?
Yep.
Yeah, so of course it had loot boxes. Every game in 2018 had loot boxes. Now every game has a battle pass.
It's true. It's really fucking true.
That being said, battle pass systems aren't as bad.
Yeah, battle
I still
passes
hate fucking...
I understand. Battle passes I'm fine with. But loot boxes are bullshit.
I still hate battle passes because it's another microtransaction thing, but it's not nearly as bad as a loot box because at least the way that most people do it is, Oh yeah, you don't have to buy it right away, but you can still make progress towards it. So, like for example, the way Paladins is doing, they have a battle pass too, but it's like basically just
Got 20 seconds.
play games and you gain experience, and you can choose whether or not you want to get it depending on how much stuff you have.
But
So, what'll our outro be?
But yeah, I hope all of you enjoyed this meandering a bullshit podcast talking about some video games. Tune in tomorrow where me and Communist Nick will be talking about Evangelion, one of my favorite anime of all time because it's about child abuse.